Nat, I think you're having some sound issues. Maybe your microphone is off. Yeah, if you tap on the on the light on the microphone, no, the light, you see it's red. That should be.
How about now?
Yes, we heard you.
Awesome, great debugging. I can tell that that's caught you out before.
Yeah.
Cool. Chat is alive, which is good. Where do we have people from? So Felipe Angel from Mexico. Hola. Where else is everyone else from?
Yeah, let us know where you're tuning in from. A bunch of people. The UK, we have somebody from the UK. Germany.
Represent.
Some people from Spain, Canada, Israel, Uganda. Nice.
Amazing. Good coverage. Dominican Republic. I love it when there's more exotic places coming up. It's awesome. Sweet. So hello, everyone. So we're doing something slightly different today, actually, as well. So normally we're quite focused on like building together and trying to push different capabilities and sort of understand what we can do. We're going to do a little bit about that. But today we also have a special guest, Mindergaus, who otherwise known as MP, because I can't pronounce Mindergaus or Mindergaugus, rather. And MP has been using Lovable to build and validate some of his ideas recently. And so we're going to be looking at the full spectrum of like how to get going, how to rip the Band-Aid off, how to figure out like what are the right kind of problems to solve, and also talk through your build so far, because I think you've been having some really awesome early success as well. And so slightly different format, but let us know what you think as we go along, and then we can improve these as well in future. But yeah, before we get into that in detail though, Christian, do you have some housekeeping that you wanted to go through?
Yeah, let's do some light housekeeping before we get started. So just a couple shout outs on stuff we've been working and shipping the past days. So we shipped a couple days back. We support now like buying custom domains without leaving Lovable. So custom domains is basically, it allows you to sort of add your own domain to your Lovable project. Instead of going through the manual flow of using a hosting provider like Netlify and connecting your GitHub repository to that and dealing with sort of complicated DNS settings, you can just do everything in one single flow in Lovable. And we supported connecting existing domains you have purchased at domain providers, and now you can also do the buy flow within Lovable with a couple clicks. Why are custom domains important or cool? They're important because they make your creation, your app more recognizable, easier to find, and you're likely going to more successfully convert visitors into users if you're building, for example, like a SaaS app. So that's one of the main things I wanted to shout out. The second thing is just a reminder, because I did speak about this last week, but we currently, we shipped like editing in our dev mode, which means until last week, you could only view code in dev mode, view the files that back your Lovable project, without having to go to GitHub. And what we shipped last week is the ability to actually edit these files. And this is maybe more relevant if you are a developer looking for more control, but it could also be interesting for less technical people to start experimenting with like small changes where you know exactly what you're doing. That could be like maybe small stylistic changes, for example. So that's the second thing. And the last thing, maybe we just created and shipped a status page. So if you're ever wondering whether Lovable is down, you can now go to our official status page and get live updates of any incidents we might be dealing with. And I think you'll find the link at the footer of our lovable.dev website. I think that's it, Nad. So back to you.
Cool. Well, let's dive in a little bit deeper into MP, into your story then. So maybe let's start with intros. So I feel like you've had quite a sort of an interesting kind of storied career, even going from like several things. So like at a high level, like maybe you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about that before we get to what you've actually been building with Lovable.
Sure. Yeah. And thanks for having me. fun to do this. As you know, Nat, I've been bombarding you with all my projects over the last couple of months. So I've been building a lot of things. But yeah, I've been the last 10 years building design communities specifically at companies like Envision, On Deck, my own thing too. That came from working in recruitment and falling in love with design and design communities specifically. But I think prior to that, I spent 10 years in hospitality, working in bars, restaurants, managing bars, restaurants. And I think my early career, and you start reflecting on those things as you start getting older. I was been thinking about, why this kind of way, or like these type of tools I feel really empowering is, I think I've always been somebody who prefers doing versus, or learning by doing, if you will, right? So how I would have found my first job is just like go and show up at the place and not apply or learn how to do it, right? So that's a quick overview, but yeah, we can get into more of those things.
Cool. And I love that philosophy as well, because one of the things I always get asked quite often is like, how do I get better? Like, how do I start even with like building my own things with a tool like Lovable, or, maybe something else? But I always feel like the best thing to do is to literally just rip the Band-Aid off and just start. And you're going to learn by doing. And sort of, I think, yeah, just diving in at the deep end is for sure the best thing to do. And so so you've been building a few products with Lovable. Maybe you could give us an elevator pitch for the one that you're building right now, and then we could take a closer look at it.
Yeah. So the one I'm kind of that's actually generating customers and some early revenue too is called BackChannel. And it's basically a 2-week job search reset. And the reason I decided to build it was, as I got more comfortable with Lovable, I started really seeing the potential, right? So before, and I'll be able to show later, right? I'll show all of my terrible projects that were for the purpose of learning, throwaway ideas, random things that have no business existing in the world, but they were fun to build. And also I learned a ton. I started thinking about a specific problem or problems that I keep hearing about, or people keep coming to me for, and start thinking about, well, how could I maybe scale the expertise I built up over the last 10 years, right? And instead of creating a course or becoming a coach, I didn't want to do either of those things for multiple reasons. Could I build something that feels like it's an in-between, and also, enables me to have a little bit more control? And again, it wasn't for the purpose to build something to sell it. It was still for the purpose of just solving a problem for myself. But when I sent it to some folks, the prototype, people wanted to buy it. So it kind of happened in a really nice organic way where then I just wanted to build it because people wanted to buy it. So it's a 2-week job search reset system based on my 10 years of how I've been getting jobs. I think it's more relevant in this market too, in how you stand out, how you find out who's actually hiring, how you get in front of people without applying, so on and so forth. So it's my methodology basically distilled into a product.
Awesome. And so that's interesting that so replaying that slightly, and also to speak to everyone in the audience a little bit more. So what I was kind of hearing then as well, that if you wanted to build something like this, I don't know, maybe a year ago, your options would have been, you could build like an ebook course, or like maybe a video course or something. But now you can build like a real product. And so you've been able to do that by prototyping and then validating, and then it's almost organically going from prototype and fuzzy idea to something that people are paying you for that you kind of weren't even expecting. And so that's interesting. And so maybe one thing for the audience would be ask yourself, and we could get for Q&A later, are there things where you should maybe, are there things where, instead of thinking about how have I been inhibited by, maybe I could make money by just having a course or whatever, what else could you build? And what else are your own skills that maybe could be productized? And so there's almost an element of how could you scale yourself into a product almost.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. It's actually what we do a little bit as well, Christian, right? It's sometimes by building Lovable, we're codifying ourselves into it so that other people can use the things that we've built out of decades of building software. And so it's funny the like meta of like us doing that for Lovable, then that lets you do that for yourself, and like all those ripple effects, which is awesome.
Yeah, I fully agree, and I think for me there was two parts to it, right? Like I kind of mentioned before, was just building lots. I probably have between the few Lovable accounts that I have, like I don't know, I tried to count. There's maybe 100 projects actually. I thought it was like maybe 50 or 60. There's maybe more but those were for the purpose of learning, and then I just asked myself, okay, what are the problems that or things that people keep asking me for, right? My advice on that, maybe then, okay, I can do one or a few 30-minute sessions, but I cannot do 500, or then, okay, I can charge for them, but then I have to make it prohibitively expensive for the people that would benefit from it the most. And so started tinkering around that problem when I felt comfortable with like knowing I could probably build something, or at least a really good prototype that could potentially deliver value. So my learning journey or the journey has been build a ton of stuff that maybe makes no sense to nobody but me, sometimes not even me. Sometimes I would generate just random ideas with GPT, so I could have something to build, and then get comfortable enough to say, you know what, let me solve an actual problem for myself and potentially for others.
And just to make it super concrete, like if I were to sign up for BackChannel, like what is like the high level experience, and what am I getting? Just to understand, like, how you productize that sort of more personal experience that you had before you kind of built out a product out of it.
Yeah, so what I actually did, and I think this is where, at least for me, AI is incredibly powerful, not just tools like Lovable, but Claude and ChatGPT. What I did was, I knew I didn't want to make a course, and I didn't want to do like launch a coaching kind of business. So what I did is essentially collected all of my writing. I've had transcripts of coaching conversations that I've done over the last few years too. I got GPT to ask me a bunch of questions about me, and recorded lots of voice notes and created basically like a master PDF doc, which was essentially my philosophy, right? And how I think and how I've, helped others, right, do certain things. And then I uploaded that into, I think I used GPT for brainstorming at that time. And I said, I don't want to build a course. I don't want to become a coach. I have access to this AI coding assistant, right? So we have some powerful capabilities here. Can we brainstorm what could be the potential model? What could that look like? And some of the ideas were pretty good. So I can share my screen, and you'll see what that looks like.
Just whilst you're configuring the screen share, by the way, I love this methodology of getting the AI to interview you in general. Like, I think most people think about computing as being this passive thing of like, I need to drive it. But I feel like we've had this sort of like inversion almost where, you should be getting AI to interview you as well. I think that's such a powerful tool in general, which is awesome.
Yeah, because again, like I built the initial throwaway ideas, they meant nothing to me, right? But they were for the purpose of learning. But if you have some type of an expertise and you're trying to brainstorm some ideas on what the experience could look like, the AI becomes really powerful because it helps you think about things that you're not thinking about, right? It's still your own experience, expertise. You own the product and the end-to-end experience, but you might unlock something that is quite interesting. So this is, if somebody signs up, this is what they can expect. So you first arrive on the screen. It gives you an overview of what to expect, but you can see my screen, right?
Yeah, would you mind just bumping up the zoom slightly?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, here we go.
Cool.
Better?
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, what I came up with was basically this 7-step, where I distilled this job hunting, job search, research process into 7 steps. And then I didn't want to overload the users with all of the content all at once. So we built a kind of, or every 2 days, it progressively unlocks a new step. So once you complete, even if you completed the first step, it doesn't give you the next step automatically. It progressively unlocks every 2 days. So you complete it over 2 weeks. I then built kind of an audio note. So first thing for each step is you get an audio note from me. Then you have these content cards, and we start diving into that. As you get through these, you have action items for that specific step with a little tooltip, and you're able to take your own notes as well. So that's what I built from a user perspective. And then from my own, I built my own kind of admin dashboard. Ignore this, I need to fix this. But essentially, this is where I manage and upload all of the content. So when I'm ready to upload a new step, I essentially can do it here. I can preview it. I can say, okay, I can enable note taking for that specific step. And I can also record the audio note directly in here too. And then once it's all good to go, hit save, and it shows up in the user dashboard here instantly.
Cool. And then clarifying questions maybe. So one is, you're using Supabase as a backend for all of this? Or?
Correct.
Yep. And then are you, so presumably then all of the users' kind of progress is then stored, on the like per account level. So every time you log in, you get that. And then you're just using that admin view almost as like your own homebrew CMS, I guess, almost.
Exactly. Yeah. I wanted to essentially an easy way to upload the content, record the audio notes, and was able to build it relatively easy.
And just to double click on that one, if you had to estimate, how many hours had you spent on your build from 0 through to sending the prototype to the first person to try?
So I can give you. So the initial idea I started building on a Sunday night. I don't know how many hours, because I was building it in between of doing like other things. So I haven't really been able to estimate the hours, but the story is that I started building it on a Sunday night, and I kind of was getting frustrated. So I decided to go to sleep. And the next morning I woke up with a fresh idea and actually rebuilt it from scratch. Started building it again from scratch. By, I believe, Wednesday, I had sent the prototype Loom to the first few people. And one of those people immediately said, hey, can I pay you for this? Can I get access? So then I think on Thursday, she was already using it and going through the first step. And I just did like a pay what you want Stripe link first for her so she could access and pay for it. And then on Friday morning, I built the full Stripe integration because other folks had come back to me and said, hey, I want to pay you for this. So I knew I needed to also build the Stripe integration as well.
Wow. So, okay. So we're basically saying Sunday to Thursday for paying customer validation. And this wasn't even, you weren't even seeking to validate payment. You just sent it to some people to get feedback. And then it was suddenly like, hey, I need to pay you for this. Like, how do I pay you for this?
Yeah.
I think that's such a good reminder to just do it and just put things out there and just see what happens. This is like the lean startup sort of methodology done the right way, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I think I can give you some a little bit more context too, right? When I had decided that I want to build, like, try and solve an actual real problem that I keep hearing about, I first DM'd a few people who had attended a free Maven Lightning lesson that I hosted kind of a couple months before that. And it was all around the topic of careers and navigating careers. And so I knew that likely a lot of those folks would be interested in something like this. So I sent a few quick DMs, maybe 10 to some of those people, and asked them a few questions. Where are you currently stuck? What would be the most helpful thing for you right now? And then a few of them came back, here's where I'm stuck. Here's what would be really, or here's what's missing. And it was actually it was basically BackChannel, what they were looking for. And so I then said, okay, here's what I'm thinking. When I have a loom or a prototype, I'll send it to you. By the way, how much would this be worth to you? And so I got a bit of a price range as well. And then it was just like enough validation, just an extra validation, right? I've been hearing these problems for 10 years. So I knew something needs to exist, but I wanted to kind of land on a bit of a format because it's so easy to get in the weeds and just overbuild something. Like just over engineer, make something over complex, then you send it to people and they're like, I just wanted this little part, and you just spent 2 weeks building this crazy thing.
That's awesome. And so I'm gonna replay that slightly because I need to just make sure I have the same, like a complete picture of it, and try and make it more actionable for people listening as well, so and watching. So it felt like first of all you had some key insight, some sort of deep domain expertise around a specific area. But then secondly, it felt like you built like some small community, some small groups around this sort of problem space, which for you was a Maven Lightning lesson. Then it sounded like you did, if people don't know, the MOM test, a really good book on like user research. Felt like you almost did a MOM test of just understanding people's problems. It wasn't even you're trying to sell something. It was like, let me just understand the pains. Then you just built a simple version of it. And then you didn't even ask for money. You just asked for feedback.
Yeah.
And just basically the process of doing all of that is like, it's funny because it's super classic, like startup advice for like seed to A startups pretty much, but you've been able to apply it in this like almost like indie hacker-esque, like solopreneur scope in a way, like super successfully, which I think is awesome because I think it's the best way to start. It's like super low stakes in a way that you can just learn quickly, and then you know that you're building something that people want, which is great.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. And yeah, for me, the most fun thing was that I didn't set out like, oh, I'm going to make something to sell. It was more like, hey, I'm progressing in my building journey or learning journey. What is a problem I can kind of solve, like an actual problem? And then people naturally wanted to use and pay for it, basically.
Cool. And maybe just to switch tracks slightly, what I think would be really interesting, because there's some questions in the comments about like, oh, like, let's share something on some prompts that we use, the challenges over here and there. If you're cool with it, I think it would be interesting to look at some of your like quote unquote failed projects where you said that you were just playing with like, you have like a graveyard of 60, 70 things where like it was just for learning for you. And so like, it'd be really sweet to demystify that a little bit and sort of show everyone what that looked like for yourself.
Yeah, let me show my screen. I'll just do the whole. Okay. So this was one. You see my screen? I know.
Yeah.
Okay. So this was a random one that I built where I was having breakfast one morning. I have no idea why I thought of this, but I thought, what if you could like leave a message for a stranger on the internet? I have no idea why I was thinking that. And then I just built it. And it was super random. There's no backend here. It's kind of done in a way where you can basically leave a message. So you receive a message from somebody else, but this is from me because, again, this is, there's no backend or nothing. But you can leave a message for the next person and then release it basically into the internet, and maybe somebody will stumble upon it. I shared it on like my Substack as like a short post, whatever. And a couple of people were like, this is so cool. I left a message and I received the message. And I was like, well, that was fun. But does it really need to exist? Probably not. That was one. This is...
By the way, would you have the Lovable projects for these? I think that would be interesting for the people, like for everyone watching as well, just to understand like how you were failing and learning at the same time. I guess or learning by doing is probably the better phrasing.
So you still see my screen?
Yeah, but Zoom would be great. A couple of clicks.
Yeah. Sorry, I keep forgetting. So you can see I like spent quite a bit of time on it, but essentially my core process is that I don't start the build in Lovable straight away. I like to flush out the idea in GPT or Claude helping me and kind of build out a pretty good prompt to get me started. So this was the first prompt. And I saw there was some questions in the chat as well about sharing prompts. Maybe I need to just like collate a bunch of them and put them in a doc or something and share them. But this was the first one. It was pretty long, as you can see. And then it built it.
And then were you thinking about, so, because you mentioned that you had like, I don't know, 60, 70 projects. Were you trying to test and learn slightly different skills with each one in any sort of conscious way? Or were you more just like, I'm just going to build because the more I build, like it's like a muscle that I sort of train?
Yeah.
Or but you're more structured by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it was much more kind of like I want to understand what are the capabilities and possibilities and how do you, because I didn't mention this at the beginning, but I'm not a designer, not an engineer. I'm very non-technical. I don't come from any of those backgrounds, right? I was a waiter making minimum wage in 2012. So I don't come from that background. And so for me, but I have a very curious mind, and I like the pain, going through the pain of learning something really complex or something that seems like so alien to me. So for me, it was just reading all of the feedback, trying to understand, trying to reprompt when something wasn't working, and then really looking at the response of the AI to kind of understand why are things like, find the patterns basically. What I'm good at is pattern matching. That's how I learn. So you can see me shouting a little bit and trying different ideas, right? When it kind of built the initial thing, I had an idea that, oh, what if I post this online, people might be leaving like terrible messages. So I went back to GPT and I was like, hey, is there any way to kind of build in a bit of a profanity filter? And I learned something new, that there's like a GitHub, I think, link or something like that, where it basically lists all of those things. You can see it here. I didn't know this, right? And so we were able to build that very quickly. So look here, if I don't know, are we allowed profanity on here? But we'll...
yeah, I don't know either.
Okay, I won't do it. But I can share it afterwards and you can try it yourself and you see like it doesn't allow you to write anything terrible.
Yeah.
And so I learned a couple of things there. Like this was me progressing in, oh, I built the initial UI, it kind of works. Now I have a problem if I share this with people and they leave terrible things. So I learned that, hey, there's easy ways to actually build profanity filters. So if I'm ever building something that's a little bit more social, right? I now know how to do that.
And so maybe just to understand there, because I think there's potentially a huge unlock for everybody watching. So that profanity list, right? You didn't know that existed before you used it. So how did you even learn that existed? Was that you just... Okay, so you're just using ChatGPT as a collaborator and you're basically saying, I have this problem super generally, and then it's coming back to you and saying like, okay, here's a great technical solution.
Yep, exactly. And then you can see here, I got it to write a prompt, implement a client-side profanity toxicity filter using open source banned words list, smart pattern detection. Here's like the link, the GitHub link to where to pull it from, example JavaScript. And then I wrote it and it worked.
Nice. One of the things I think was cool, and Pete, that you said before, is that this did not have to exist. And to be honest, it probably wouldn't have existed in a world where like building this would require a developer sitting down and actually hand coding it, right?
Yeah.
Because like there are so many things so many ideas we have that we just did not used to execute on because it would just be too expensive. There was no, like, the return on investment wouldn't justify it. Yeah. And I feel like now we just live in this time where tools like Lovable just enable you to be more ambitious with ideas that maybe are less impactful, or at least they're just fun things you just want to test, right?
Yeah.
So the bar is so much lower, right? The bar is so much lower, and we can just like do things that before would be prohibited by cost and other barriers.
Yeah. Here's another one that like absolutely doesn't need to exist.
Yeah.
But I've sent it to a bunch of people, and they just had, an amazingly nostalgic moment, right? Like it just basically generates all of these, things. If you were born in the 80s, 90s, you're gonna have a good laugh, And so again, this didn't need to exist, but it was fun to make for no reason whatsoever, and learn a bunch of things along the way, right?
Yeah.
Around how to think about just different ways of creating something.
Yeah.
So yeah, this,
This is so cool. And do you have any other, like, I'm wondering, there's the profanity filter, which I thought was really interesting, because that's like quite a specific solution that you would have never known about had you not just struck across that need. Are there any other projects that you could show us where there's like a similar learning, where it's like your eyes were just opened on like a new I don't know, like a new technique, or like a new thing about even building with AI this way, or anything?
I think maybe this one, which is like, it tries to generate like a forgotten childhood game, right? So we all have things that we maybe remember, oh, I played this thing and it kind of worked like that. Now the games don't really work, but that's really not the point. But like here, if you kind of like look, in 2 seconds, it's generating a little game, right? Oh, and it has noise too, but it doesn't really work, right? But that wasn't really the point. That kind of, for me, alongside the learning, it was like pushing my mind onto where are the limitations and where are the possibilities. Because then I've always known, once I started playing around, that I would eventually actually want to build something more real. So I wanted to understand, again, not being a designer, not being an engineer, it was very important for me to understand like how to do, like, what's possible, and how to get to a point where I'm not spending 10 hours building, I don't know how many, I don't think I spent 10 hours doing this, but you get what I'm trying to say is I can get to solutions very quickly. So I'll give you an example of this one. So this one is one that I'm working on that could become more real, because it is related to the audience that BackChannel serves, or the audience that I know, or the customer problems that I know, right? So this one is to practice interviews and get feedback. I built this in, I think, like a couple of hours. What this does is you tap to speak, it starts recording. So you tell me about yourself question, or you can try another question, and then it analyzes it. So there's like a really rich system prompt on top of it, and the OpenAI Whisper, I think it's called, API plugged in. So I've been sending this to folks and getting some really good feedback already. So if I tried to build this, I don't know, 3 months ago, I probably either wouldn't have built it because I wouldn't have known it was possible, or two, it probably would have taken me much longer than it should, and then maybe I would have given up.
I have to say, as somebody who describes themselves as not a designer and not an engineer, you are fooling me. Like, these are all pretty accomplished, and I love that you've been able to get to this point by just simply doing, by simply just getting going and just experimenting and just almost treating it as a game that also like educates you as well. It almost feels like you're just kind of getting your reps in and just playing, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And then again, you can see here, I mean, obviously it was just recording what I was saying, so it's not relevant, but so it becomes much easier to like ship actual more real ideas the more that you practice.
And Bindigas, I think you've got your next customer as well by the looks of it. I think Mark Chapman just highlighted on the stream wants this to help coach students.
No way. I'm not seeing the chat. Okay.
Oh.
Cool.
Yeah, we pinned it. But
Awesome.
But yeah, this is really cool. What else? Like what's I guess maybe one question would be so you're experimenting with building with AI, doing it for the first time, you're getting these reps in, it's like a little bit of play, a little bit of education. Are there any like high level limitations or like things you found to be like repeatedly true or like repeated learnings where you wish that you knew them on day one, or like you would advise people to think about, just keep this in mind in terms of guardrails, or anything that you find to be repeatedly helpful or like a repeated learning?
I think like one, definitely just play, just build random stuff. That's how you're gonna get like run into the pains, and some won't enjoy the pain of things breaking and not being able to figure out, but most things can be figured out if you just persist. So persistence is a really good skill to have in something like this, especially if you're non-technical, having a curious mind. But from like a more practical point of view, I would say I spend much more time outside of Lovable first. So I build in kind of my own little workflow on how I go from idea to then that when the first build happens to that idea kind of being close to what I was thinking about. And then it enables me to, one, gets me excited and enables me to start iterating on it in an easy way, which is working outside of Lovable to define the problem, the solution, the idea, brainstorming, writing out a really good prompt. So like one hack that I tell people about all the time is, you guys have really good documentation in the learn section, right? So just might as well just show. So I copied, where am I? Where's the comment?
So shout out to Stefan, who's manning the chat, who like all of this is his baby. He does an excellent job of putting this together.
So I essentially copied all of this, all of these instructions, basically what you guys have here, and created my own PDF that whenever I start a new project, I feed that into Claude or GPT, but not straight away. So first I'll work with Claude or GPT to define the idea. I'll ask it to maybe think about the idea from a perspective of a designer, engineer, a PM, and then give me kind of like a PRD of sorts, or a spec, basically. This is where we, if you're building a real idea, this is where you are important, because you need to review and make sure that directionally that idea is true, is what you had imagined. And if that looks correct, then I'll feed that PDF of all of your instructions to Claude, and I'll get it to write me a really good prompt to get me started, basically. That's something I use on every single project.
I think that what's interesting with what you're saying is that you're making me reflect about like how, as the building becomes like more commoditized and accessible to everyone, like where the value and the unlock will be just like the people that have the right taste and
ideas.
And ideas. Yeah, so it's more about the know-how. Like, in your case, is a great example, right? You worked in sort of the coaching career space. You have probably access to a set of communities that can help you get quick feedback with the ideas you're testing, and that just suddenly becomes more important. If you never had ideas, this does little to help you. But if you've always had a lot of ideas, this just sort of amplifies it and makes it easy for you to monetize them, distribute them, and sort of like productize them. So
yeah,
I think that's super a trend I think as being super exciting.
I agree.
100%.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I wanted to 100% agree, and I wanted to like almost like call out and replay, because I think you kind of shared 3 quite powerful tricks there, almost, or like tips rather is a better word, where like one was like using export and import, so literally capture parts of docs and then import that to ChatGPT. The other was, it sounded like you were basically saying you were encouraging ChatGPT to play different personas and
Yeah.
sort of literally pretend to be a designer, now critique it, pretend to be a product manager, now critique it, pretend to be a technical architect, now or whatever. Like that feels like another unlock for people to be able to try, which is awesome. And then lastly, you also used the term PRD, so like product requirement stock. I should really know what that stands for, but having a really clear functional spec as well to then take back into Lovable.
Yeah, and that's where if you can learn enough about those things without having to have been a PM or a designer or engineer, right? You can learn those terms. I know so many terms now that I didn't know. Like I've heard of them, right? But I've never used them in my own work because I've never worked in a product team. So you can, with a curious enough mind, you can learn those things and start understanding them, and then they start becoming like part of your vocabulary because you're using them. So I definitely encourage people to do it that way, and also I think it becomes part of your workflow. And I think the other thing is that I think where I know a lot of people run into challenges. Let's say you are trying to build kind of a real idea or product. If you haven't spent the time to define it outside of, let's say, before you start building it, it might, like, the onboarding might need 2 steps, but the AI doesn't know that. It might build you something that has 25 steps. And now you're already on the back foot because you didn't spend the time outside to kind of define those things and really think about those things. Like, does it need to have 7-step onboarding, or can it just be like a quick hello and capture your email and let's go, like get inside and use it?
Totally, that's such a good point, actually. And it makes me think, like, Christian, I wonder if we could, maybe it's dangerous to hash this out live on a live stream, but I feel really conflicted in some ways in this whole conversation, where in an ideal world, I think that we would build Lovable in a way where you don't need to command tab out to something else to be like, I need to collect my thoughts. But at the same time, I think the reality is that you get even personal perspective by doing that. Like the way that you talk to ChatGPT or Claude by going to ChatGPT or Claude with other context, other knowledge you might have specified there, versus when you're in builder mode, I think that something kind of happens. And so I'd be curious if, like, Christian, like, do you think we should do more of this in Lovable? Like, should we make Lovable like more across this track, like in the long term, where we do more of this inside Lovable? And also to the audience as well, like, what do you think? Like, do you just feel more empowered by being able to work across different apps, or would you rather just be able to do this stuff directly?
Yeah, no, super good question. So should we do more in sort of helping users ideate and maybe like decide what to build? That seems like a pretty, like an entirely different product in many ways. Like it could be like a market research AI that kind of looks at segments and does like, really looks at like growing trends and helps you decide where to place your bets. So I think it's a bit, maybe in the long-term future, it might be something we want to start doing, and we become like connected to data sources that inform, growing markets. And it seems very far-fetched, to be honest. What I do think we might start exploring more in the short term is like this ideation loop that happens within once you're building the product and have a kind of like more or less clear idea of what you want to build. Like thinking about, for example, what is the next feature? What is a small iteration you can do on a specific feature to improve it and sort of make X metric go up? So I'm a bit more bullish on that sort of inner idea loop than sort of stepping out and suddenly becoming like the portal where people that have zero ideas can sort of also sort of get guidance. But who knows? That's sort of would be my immediate take.
Or you could have like because I already know, for example, I'm doing a lot of repeatable things, right?
Yeah.
Where, for example, I'm capturing potential customer conversations in Granola. Then I'm going between, like, I'm going to build my own little product in Lovable that serves, it's just going to be for me, right? That helps just capture, like, I can just maybe even connect Granola. I don't know if they have an API. I'll take a look, but I'll figure out a way, right, how to do that. That just collects and starts pulling potential product ideas or feature ideas without me having to kind of go and then put it into Claude and or whatever, right? It's just going to be like a constant loop because I know I'm doing that anyway. I'm wasting time doing that. Like, so you could maybe have like project templates like from users that people can just use or something, right? To kind of solve those things or to generate ideas somewhere. You could just guide people where to do that.
Yeah, totally. So it feels like we're getting consensus sort of across the three of us, and also the chat as well, where people are saying that actually it's great to sort of draft and mature your ideas like outside, and there's like many benefits to that. And then start from Lovable when you're ready to go 0 to 1, and then and then sort of iterate further from there within, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Should we? I'm just conscious of time because we're 46 minutes in, so the time flies. We've been pinning some questions. Actually, before we go to like open Q&A, is there anything burning for either of you two where like we just haven't been able to talk about something that you'd like to touch on, or maybe a different angle, or like Mendigas from your lovely like project graveyard? I don't know if you have like something else that's just like super cool to show, or but anything else before we look a little bit closer at audience Q&A.
Maybe one thing on my side, I know Stefan just shared this directly to me. So we actually have some documentation as well to help you form your ideas before coming to Lovable. Stefan has you covered as well. So feel free to check that out if you are struggling with the sort of ideation phase. It might stimulate some good thoughts.
Nice. And then for me, no, I mean, just I have a bunch. I built. Oh yeah, you know what I built? Actually, I'll just if it's here, I'll show you quickly, and then we can go into. I think it's in this account. Where was it? Oh yeah, I think it was this one. Maybe this one. So
just whilst we're loading this, if people have more questions, now's a good time to put them in chat, and then we'll start to pick from them just after we do this final share.
So this one was it got overbuilt for no reason whatsoever. It got overcomplicated, but Nad, you'll know this. Designers often struggle to speak business. So I was like, let me build a little business impact translator. So you could say, I redesigned.
Are you meant to be sharing your screen, by the way? I can't see it.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Sorry, yeah. I'll share it there quickly. So look, I built this design speak translator, basically. For no reason whatsoever. But people have told me to finish it. And it's, you know, it can translate it for different personas, right? So if you're presenting to executives, it'll translate it for you. I think the API is still connected. Yeah. So look, it kind of expands a little bit more. And then you can switch it to, if you're talking to PMs, it rewrites it for you.
Oh, perfect. This is the tool we needed, Ned.
So again, there's like some examples there, but again, this was just on the evolution of like me starting to think about like actual problems rather than building like weird things, like leaving messages for strangers on the internet. But again, does it really need to exist? I don't know, but it was fun to build. And then I think this is one of the first ones where I hooked in an AI API,
right?
And it worked. And that was another big unlock for me, right? Because I learned something powerful for me, and then different projects started kind of evolving from there, or different ideas. Because again, this is being pulled by like there's no real system prompt behind it. It was more like a test. But again, it's writing it, the AI is writing it. This is not a like a pre-written generic thing that it's spitting out.
That's super cool. And yeah, I feel like there's so many moments in my career where this would have been useful.
I know some people have asked me to finish it, but maybe I will.
That's super awesome. Amazing. I feel like if we could, like, any little project, there'll be probably something interesting, which is so much fun. I wasn't expecting this. Actually, we didn't really plan for like the project deep dive. So this is so much fun. Cool. Should we have a look at some questions
Sure.
from the audience? Who,
Yeah,
Christian, do you want to be the pinner, or
I can be the pinner. There's a lot of angles here, so I mean, there's like it's sort of all over the place, but there's some interesting questions here that are maybe not directly related to everything we've discussed, but maybe still relevant. So one of them is, will there ever be a try to fix auto mode? I would love to have to stop clicking fix it when I always want it fixed. And I think we have something in the pipeline that will solve that. So if you see yourself clicking multiple times nonstop on the try to fix button, we're gonna soon ship something that will save you that pain. What else? There is a lot of takes here. Yeah, maybe this one. Minderas, maybe you have some opinions. Like, any way to speed up the system? It takes a while sometimes. Setting knowledge to keep all the components small. Or maybe like a beast mode that uses more credits.
beast mode? That would be awesome.
I'm for now, I haven't really wanted anything like that. And it's purely that, like I keep saying, I think I enjoy the pain of just learning stuff, right? Because for me, I could just keep, clicking and saying like, you just fix it, or I try to pull out some of the errors and go back into maybe GPT or Claude and say like, hey, what's actually happening here? Can you explain to me? Or even asking Lovable, like, hey, I often say I'm not technical, because it often will reply, as it should, explaining things in very technical terms, right? So I'll say I'm not technical. So we'll go back and forth, and in that process, I'm learning. So a beast mode, I think, would be cool though, for sure.
Yep.
But for now, I'm just enjoying the learning process.
Makes sense. Interesting question here from A Reason to Feel from Twitter. Do you ideate on paper or like whiteboards on like physical, I guess, canvases, or do you typically just go to Lovable and prompt first and go from there?
No, I go to GPT or Claude. So I'll think about the problem, right? The more first critical thing that I do is I will record a granola voice note. And I don't know if this is for anybody else, but I have found that if I type out, like, let's say I'm building a new feature, or I wanted to fix something, or whatever that may be, there's a big difference if I type it out or I record a voice note and copy and paste the voice note. I often find that complete natural language, it understands better. So what I do before any build is I record sometimes a very long granola voice note, just talking about the idea. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's who the customer is. Here's, what they may be thinking about. Here's the problems that they're like dealing with. I'm thinking it might work like this or this, right? It might have this feature or this feature, but I don't really tend to go to features. It's like, here's how I think this might solve the problem, right? And then I'll paste that into GPT and Claude and start seeing like, okay, is it expanding correctly on what's in my head? Because I find limitations in the sense that, like, English is not my first language. I've never really like worked in a product team, right? I don't know a lot of the terminology. And so where I find is incredibly helpful is taking my very rough idea that I just recorded a voice note and then expanded it. If I've given it the right context, and if I'm thinking about a real problem that I know about, usually you get a really good result when you read it and you're like, yes, it got what I'm trying to talk about, and actually expanded on it in a very cool way that I wouldn't have been able to do. So I spend my time doing that, because then when you go to Lovable, you get that first output, you look at it, you're like, this is it. Now I'm excited to like iterate on it, right? Yes, some things might not be right, whatever. Doesn't matter. But now you're looking at something and you're like, yeah, I wanna keep building. I'm excited, versus kind of going, what is this? Like, it's because you didn't spend the time to define, right, what you're trying to build.
It feels like that's a constant with like working with AI apps. Like the more context, the better. It never hurts to add additional context. It's always going to be good. Cool. There is obviously, unsurprisingly, a series of questions around like errors and how you deal with them. Do you have any sort of tips around how you get over tricky situations?
So Lovable taught me this tip after I went through a very frustrating, I don't know how many times trying to fix this specific error. And I don't know why, but it said, hey, open up the preview or open up the project, try to do what you're doing, open up, inspect and console, right? And see the actual error that it's spitting out and give me that, copy and paste it. And I did that and it fixed it immediately after me asking it, I don't know, 10 different times, pretty much saying the same thing. Because again, I don't have the language or the understanding. So now I learned a trick that like, hey, if there's a bug, right? If this button was clicking before, but now I made a change, but now it's no longer clicking, just open up console, click it. What's the error? Copy and paste the error, throw it back into Lovable. It's probably going to solve it.
Yeah. So for everyone listening, this the trick of like opening the developer tools panel in Chrome used to be a very effective trick. But the good news is that Lovable now can read the console logs themselves. So it shouldn't be necessary. I'm not saying it works 100% of the times, but Lovable should be aware of that history as well and be able to use it on debugging.
That's amazing.
So that's good news, and it's based basically on your learnings that we decided to introduce that as context. Again, back to context being helpful always. Cool. I'm not seeing any other sort of relevant questions. I don't know if you Nat, have a last question, or
there was a request from Stefan asking about a question on payments, which we could answer, but I think you'd be the best person to answer. So I'll let you choose if we.
Yeah. So I think it's fair to say that payments is the most requested integration. I think I really understand why. Like part of the excitement of building with Lovable is the dream of being able to monetize it, share it, and actually like generate some revenue. So it's what I can say is like it's super top of mind. We have a current integration that you can already build with. It's not perfect, but you should already be able to tell Lovable that you want to integrate Stripe, and it should guide you through the steps. But we want to make this feel much more native and seamless. And this will be something we focus on soon. I think it likely will be the next sort of native integration we ship. So yeah.
Nice. I'll just say, I did my full Stripe integration via webhooks and the API, drinking coffee on a Friday morning, and it worked, and I nearly fell off my chair. It's actually not that hard to set up.
Yeah. So I mean, for the brave, you can try already now. If you're less less brave, then you can wait until we have something much more streamlined.
I have another one actually that I want to pin, which is, do we plan to have a feature that will back up the project completely, including things go wrong? And will this include the super base state? This is pretty active conversation internally, and so expect more. over here. So expect a lot more improvements coming to versioning and histories, and expect things to get better across every single front over here. So if this is a pain right now, apologies. We feel the same pain, and we're going to fix it. We're going to improve it.
Cool. I don't think I see any other relevant questions. Mostly happy users that have really enjoyed the stream.
Yeah. Actually, so yeah, today was a bit. As we said at the start, today was a bit of an experiment. We, instead of just sort of talking about latest capabilities, we wanted to highlight people building with Lovable, and like maybe part of the deeper belief here is that also like we don't think that we're successful by just having users. We think that we're successful when like you are successful. Like, so when we care about, not just you being able to have an account and create projects, but also your projects being out there and your projects, fulfilling whatever it is that you want to do. And so that's kind of where the sort of germ of this this idea for this stream came from. And so let us know what you think. Let us know if you enjoyed this, if you'd like to see them again, because for sure we can do more of them. Maybe need to figure out what kind of frequency, but your feedback would really help us figure out those kinds of things. And so feedback and input appreciated.
Yeah, and you will get an email in a couple hours if you attend the Luma, and you will be able to share your feedback with us via that. Cool. Should we wrap up, Ned? Yes, let's do it. So thank you so much for joining this live stream. We are going to do, like the schedule typically is one live stream a week, Thursday at 6 p.m. Central European time. So just subscribe to the Luma calendar if you want to get updates via there. We'll also like always send a reminder with our changelog emails every week. And you can see all the past sessions. They're recorded and available in our YouTube channel. So if you can, like we've done now like more than 10, I think. So feel free to also go there and revisit some of the old ones. And Pete, thank you so much for joining us as a guest. And it's been super fun to see what you built, and extremely invigorating. So yeah, thanks for hopping in.
Oh, thanks for having me. And at least I was able to, what was it, 1,000 people or something?
Yeah.
Instead of emailing Nad every 2 days, look, I made a new one. Hey, I made a new one.
Cool. All right. Happy building, everyone. Have a good one.
Enjoy.